So when you look at Warner Brothers and DC right now, it does feel like you got a checklist going on. So every time something happens, you got to mark it off as it has been completed. And as of right now, we can finally mark off on this checklist that they have found the new CEOs in James Gunn and Peter Safran. That still opens up a lot of questions on what the future is going to hold for DC, because as we know, the DCU, which it is now confirmed to be called, is not going to be starting from scratch and going from point A to point whenever, point never ending, the way Marvel has been doing it. DC needs to start in the middle. They need to find what works here and now and go with it. So the biggest question we now need to ask is, what are they going to do to finally connect all these universes? And even if they don't connect all these universes, how are they going to find a way to differentiate it properly? And I'm looking more specifically at James Gunn, because he, of course, is going to be handling the creativity side of this. So there's an article I'm going to read. It is about a week old now. Even still, many people may have not come across it and read it. It may give us pointers on what they could be doing, but I want to throw my 2 cents in here. If it does seem to be a little too difficult to merge the DCU with a Robert Pattinson Batman world or the Joaquin Phoenix Joker world, what I was thinking they could do is they could set up 2 different brands. You could set up DC and you could set up DC Dark or DC Red Label, just essentially saying you have 2 different versions of DC characters. DC is where the connected universe is going to be, and the DC Red Label is where you get to play around with DC characters in a much darker fashion. Within a DC Red Label, you would have the Batman movie and the Joker movie, and any other movie that would kind of follow those narratives and follow those tones could be placed into that type of category, as long as it's not getting connected to the DC universe. Now, I know the popular complaint, if you will, would be, how is this connected? Which the answer would be, they're not connected. And then that would now become, well, aren't you confusing people? Aren't they kind of losing track of what's real to the connected universe and what's not? How am I supposed to know who's playing Batman in this movie? Blah, blah, blah. That is a fair argument, but we do live in a world nowadays where the multiverse doesn't just exist in comic books anymore. Even your average viewer understands what a multiverse is in terms of comic book storytelling. So let's just say, for example, Robert Pattinson's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman, they are in 2 different universes. Pattinson's Batman falls under that DC Red Label, whereas Affleck's Batman falls within the DC connected universe. I think that is certainly a possibility, and I definitely think that is something you could get around. So I'm not going to read this whole article. I'm just going to read the points that could cater towards what they will do with this connected universe. So the article was written by Matthew Baloney, and he says, what will DC brand and sensibility become? Zaslav is pretty transparent about his intentions here. When you compare DC to Marvel, Marvel is 7, 8, 9 times bigger, but we have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, he said on an investor podcast this week. If Zaslav really wants Marvel, meaning a superhero universe connected across all media and tied together with one coherent sensibility, this is not the current iteration of DC. Warner Brothers has always maintained that the strength of the DC brand is that it can house hard R psychological thrillers, which means the Joker, and kid-friendly escapism like Shazam under one roof. So figuring out what new DC stands for, and if it still stands for many different styles, will be job one on the film side. This is a very good point. I mean, we need something coherent. We need something that we can all sit here and say, yeah, you know what, this makes sense. The direction they're going to move in makes sense. I'll tell you this right now, even with my idea of a DCU and a DC Red or Dark Label, I would have absolutely no problem if James Gunn did find a way to merge both of these worlds together, to merge these psychological character study thrillers with more of a connected universe, Shazam, almost kind of comedic or lighthearted film. One moment you could be reading the darkest Batman story you've ever read in comic book form, and then all of a sudden say, you know what, I'm gonna go switch over and I'm gonna go read Shazam. Two tonally different characters, but they work in the same universe. Will filmmakers take notes from a peer? Already, I'm told Todd Phillips has made it clear that his Joker sequel, which starts shooting November 28th, will stay under Warner's proper and not DC. And I can't imagine Batman franchise writer-director Matt Reeves would be thrilled about a story or character veto from his former peer. But this seems like a small issue, and Gunn could actually serve as a mentor figure for less experienced filmmakers. There you go, right there. It just said that the Joker film is going to stay in its own separate brand or label, and it seems that the Batman will be as well. Every single day there are discussions on the internet of, could James Gunn find a way to merge the DCU with that Joker film and that Robert Pattinson Batman film? Those conversations have been there long before James Gunn even became the CEO of DC. But to be completely honest with you here, I really don't know how he would merge those two stories with the DCU. They are just completely different narratives. I don't know if they could actually soundly fit in a DCU. I don't know if it would work. But see, this is the thing. At this point in DC, I'm all ears. I'll pay attention, I'll listen, I'll hear out your ideas. I would never blatantly just say no to Robert Pattinson and Joaquin Phoenix somehow finding a way to join the DCU. Something's got to work at this point. Something needs to change in DC, as we all know. Who knows if it would work? What will the big investment in DC look like? On that podcast, Zaslav explained his view that Warner Brothers Discovery spends too much on content that doesn't matter to audiences and not enough on content that does matter. There's areas like DC, he said, where we think there could be big investment and big return, and it's not happening. That begs the question, what is DC not doing that Zaslav thinks it should be doing? DC already produces about 2 big budget movies a year, plus animation, plus all the HBO Max and CW shows based on DC properties, plus games. So how much more DC does Zaslav want? I mean, I think Zaslav answered that question there at the end though. He said that he wants more focus on characters that are going to make money and are going to be a genuine interest to the fan base, and not these other movies based off of characters that have no interest to anyone right now, because DC struggles to get anyone interested in the first place with their lack of vision and continuity. His biggest focuses is what any DC fan's big focus should be. The main 3, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Batman, of course, has been dealt with a lot. Some people will even say enough. I mean, as a Batman fan, I'm never going to complain. Give me more Batman. Superman has been sitting on the sidelines for over 5 years. They haven't done anything with Superman. It's been 10 years since we've got Man of Steel. That's a long ass time, and it'll probably accumulate to about 12 years until we get the next Superman film. And then when you look at Wonder Woman, she just needs to be used more, and her movies need to be better. Wonder Woman 1 is good right up until the end. The third act of that movie sucks, in my opinion. And then when you look at Wonder Woman 84, that movie all around is just a very bad film. The concept is there. There's something there. There's a gem. But the gem was never extracted. They were never capable of doing what they wanted to do with that movie. You know what? It's time to get rid of these CW shows. Those gotta go. And honestly, get rid of these HBO Max shows. They're not important anymore. They haven't been important for a very long time. I mean, CW, guys, how many times have I ripped on the CW on this channel? And I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to waste anyone's time, because I've done it so often. But this is exactly what he's saying. It's time to stop wasting money on things that don't matter, and it's time to start spending money on characters who do matter. And then guess what? When your movies make money, when they actually hit your audience, when DC becomes a bit bigger than it is right now, then you can start diving into those B and C class characters. Now, will any of this actually matter? At least on the movie side, projects from new executives take 2 to 3 years to hit theaters. Gunn and Safran could have a new boss by then, or at least a new company name on their paychecks. Zaslav told Warner staffers at a recent town hall that the company is absolutely not for sale. But few on Wall Street believe that sentiment, and the financial reality is that if the company's stock price doesn't improve soon, it closed Friday under $13 and about half the price when the company debuted in April. Zaslav won't have much of a choice but to sell or merge the whole thing. Under the rules of the Reverse Morris Trust, Warner Brothers Discovery can't sell itself for 2 years, but the remaining time since that hourglass turned over is in line with how long it would take to consummate a combination of a company its size. Zaslav has been complaining loudly that Warner Brothers Discovery is undervalued, and given the power of the brands and the content, he's likely to correct. But as he also said on the podcast this week, the market is always right, eventually. Now, the main reason why I want to read that last paragraph of the article is because let's just hypothetically say that Warner Brothers Discovery was bought out. If Warner Brothers was once again merged into another company or studio, right now the front runners would be Universal Productions. I have my opinion on this. I actually don't think it's going to happen. I think Warner Brothers is too much of a big name to be run or owned by anybody else. But crazier things have happened in this industry, so you never know. Now, if that did happen, what could DC look like under a new studio head? I mean, of course, James Gunn and Safran would still be leading it, but under a new production studio, maybe they would be more likely to have this outlook of, okay, we'll have the DCU over here, but then we will also have the DC Dark Label or Red Label over here. Maybe they would want to branch out and differentiate different DC content. Maybe they would even ruin DC back to what they were doing before with Walter Hamada, making projects with characters no one cared about and completely ruining the Justice League. Or maybe a new owner would do exactly what they're trying to do now. They're trying to find some safe space to play around with the DC universe, getting Henry Cavill back, and actually starting a proper DCU. Now, I don't have the answers for you. I only gave you this DCU and DC Dark Label as an option. I was just thinking out loud. Once again, if they were to do something like that, it would be okay with me. Then if they were to get a little crazy and actually find a way to move all these movies and universes into one, you won't see me complaining. At the end of the day, this is all I want. Okay, ready? Here it is. Consistency. That's it. And you might think, well, consistency might mean a lot of things. It's true, but consistency in the fact that I just want a proper connected universe. I don't care if this movie is super dark and this movie is super comedic and lighthearted. At the end of the day, if they're all following up to one main storyline, you got my attention. I just want consistency. But anyways, everyone, now it is your turn. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this. Let me know in the comments below what you think they should do regarding the DC universe and any other movie that falls outside of the DCU itself. And you know what? Just because it is a hot topic right now, let me know if you think Warner Brothers would be sold eventually, or if you think they'll finally find their feet. But anyways, everyone, that is all I got for you on this video. And until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.